Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It is 5:07. It's Wednesday morning. Bit of an election hangover here, not in a good way, by the way. It was a late night and not a great night for Republicans across the board, and certainly here in our backyard in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We'll cover it for you. You got to wake up, brush yourself off, and keep fighting the fight. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas will join us. At 7:05, Katie Gorka, chair of the Fairfax Republicans. 7:35 brings us Tim Hobert, president of the American Veterans Center. And then at 8:05, Mark Halperin will shed some light on what the hell happened in New York and New Jersey. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. The one consolation as well, I mean, they didn't vote for a communist in Virginia. We got that going for us, right? Right, Julie?
Right?
Yeah. It wasn't good. It was very bad. And there's going to be a lot of analysis and a lot of opinions, and they're already saying, well, this is a referendum on Trump. Let's just be clear. Donald Trump actually polled 10 points higher than Winsome Sears did in Virginia just a year ago. And Donald Trump was not on the ticket. And Winsome Sears was, well, I mean, she's a good woman. She's not MAGA. So I don't think people went out and said that Winsome Sears is too close to Trump. I mean, there may have been backlash against Trump in Virginia. It's Virginia, after all. But ultimately, last night, Republicans got shellacked in 3 major jurisdictions: Virginia, New Jersey, and New York City. We'll set California aside there. It's kind of a special animal. But in those 3 jurisdictions where Republicans rarely do well at all, yes, we got a clean sweep 4 years ago by about 1.5 points. If that. It's true that Virginia is pretty much solidly a Democrat state right now. That said, the margin was stunning to see Abigail Spanberger win by 57 to 42 points over Winsome Earl Sears. And even more tragically, seeing that Democrats seemed perfectly fine electing an attorney general who was exposed as, well, just not a good person, let's say, with their private musings about the death of Republican children to prove a political point. That's disconcerting, to know that your neighbors are just fine with a person like that being the attorney general. Is that probably the toughest pill to swallow for you, Julie, looking at yesterday's results in Virginia?
Really hard knowing a giant chunk of your neighbors want you and your kids dead. Yeah, that's a hard thing to come to terms.
Well, or to
oh no,
I promise.
Larry,
well,
they pulled this.
They're fine with
Sorry.
another person wanting you dead, I guess.
Whatever. The bottom line is that there's some real, moral midgets in Virginia, and we got to all grapple with that, because they actually polled. Knowing what Jay Jones said, does that bother you? Or are you okay with it? I mean, a scary number. I don't have the polling in front of me, but I saw this last night as I was scrolling through X. They did poll that. How do you feel once you learn that Jay Jones, because I think in my mind I was like, oh, well, it was early voting. It was like people had already cast their vote. No, I mean, that it doesn't necessarily translate. Maybe some people were just like, it doesn't bother me and I already voted and I'm not going to think about it. But, I mean, they asked people, does this bother you? And a majority of them were like, nope, it actually does. It's okay. Yeah. And then I got in a tangle on X last night with a guy who seemed somewhat reasonable. He started off not seeming so reasonable, then sort of came around. And he kind of said, have you ever said something off the cuff or in the heat of the moment? And I think we need to those folks, I say this, you need to separate being in an argument and saying something out loud verbally and kind of regretting it and actually writing it down.
Yeah.
Those are two totally, in a text, those are two totally different things.
And then being challenged on it and doubling down and saying, oh, no,
right.
yeah, this is what I believe. Right. You're right. And by the way, I'd be happy to say that as God knows, I've said many things I regret. I've never wished violence or death on people.
Yeah.
Even rhetorically, not that I remember. NBC Virginia Attorney General exit poll, I think, is what you're referring to. Did the leaked text messages sent by Jay Jones, 45% said that it should be disqualifying. 55% said either they were concerned but it wasn't disqualifying or not a reason of concern at all. 70% said they haven't heard enough about the story, which is an indictment of our media, of course.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is, at the very least, disconcerting. Maybe there's, I'm trying to find the upside here, and there isn't a whole lot. But can we put to bed forever the notion that somebody's private or public utterances are in some way disqualifying? That's it. They're disqualified. They can't be president. Oh, no. Virginians just crossed a Rubicon. I can't think of something that people will be able to, last election cycle, the candidate for governor in North Carolina, you remember some of his public utterances and internet escapades were brought to light, right? This was Mark Robinson. Remember Mark Robinson?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said some sexual things online and some racist things online. He lost in North Carolina last year by 15 points. In a state that at the same time elected Trump by over 3 points. Jay Jones was just elected by 5 percentage points, which also is disturbing. I mean, if it was, even if it was close, it would have bothered me. But it wasn't close. And Jay Jones, who, by the way, it should be noted that he might be disbarred for his behavior. You might have an attorney general who can't actually practice law. But it doesn't matter.
I don't know about that. I think about the bar has just been, again, another captured organization that doesn't do anything. We've talked to Joe DeGeneva about that, the misbehavior of some of these leftist judges, these leftist lawyers, and then the bar does nothing, is sadly the reality.
While the election returns were rolling in, we had reports that a good handful of senators were getting together and putting the pieces together for an agreement to reopen the federal government. In the Senate, they could be voting by the end of the week, which means after tweaking the continuing resolution that now has to be extended beyond November 15th over in the House of Representatives, the government could be back and funded and functioning by early next week, which tells you that was the plan. Democrats shut this government down in part because they thought it would help them in Virginia, and it appears to have worked.
Yeah.
It appears to have worked as, I don't know if people blamed Winsome Earl Sears for the shutdown, but they blamed her party by proxy part of the way. And also I think that there was just a growing anger and distemper in Virginia that they took out on whoever was holding the incumbent offices, which was Virginia's Republicans at this moment. There's more to break down here and sort of put the pieces together. I want to just point out once again, and I'll elaborate in a moment, Winsome Earl Sears is a good person, a fine woman. She wasn't an extraordinary candidate. Neither was Abigail Spanberger, by the way, but she had the advantage of running in a Democrat state with the media running cover for her, falsely claiming that she's a moderate and not pressing her on any of her flaws. When you're a Republican running for office, you need to be well-funded and you need to be good. Really, really good. And I don't want anyone to misinterpret this. I like Winsome Earl Sears, and I think that she's a good person. That doesn't mean you're a good candidate. And we can elaborate on that in a moment.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
I always admonish everyone not to be an Eeyore Republican, but it's hard on a day like this. Listen, you win some, you lose some. Oh, win some, get it? Ha! Come on, work with me, Julie. It's a rough day.
Doing my best.
We lost. We lost yesterday. I disagree that it's a referendum on Donald Trump, although, especially because, by the way, Donald Trump wasn't really engaged in any of these races. He was engaged in international affairs over the course of the last several months. Maybe if he were engaged, it would have been better. I don't know necessarily. I do think Republicans need to take this as a bit of a wake-up call, not in terms of how they're failing at the federal level, but how they still have issues in states. As much as New Jersey has moved in one direction for Republicans over the last several years, it's still a Democrat state, and the powers that be in that state, and certainly in Virginia, they deserve some scrutiny. Sean Spicer, who is a Virginia Republican and has been for decades, he said that every consultant working in the Commonwealth needs to be called into question here and scrutinized. I don't disagree with that at all. I mentioned that Winsome Sears was not a great candidate, and again, I don't mean that. It's my job to give political analysis after an election loss like this. A year ago, there was still a question as to whether she should be the candidate. There was a lot of energy and momentum behind talking Jason Miyares. Well, I don't know if he needed too much talking into, but the suggestion was about a year ago, and we talked about it on the air at the time, Julie, was that Jason Miyares might run for the Republican nomination for governor, and that there would be a primary. And I'm not sure who the party elders were that put a kibosh on that. But it was determined, no, we don't want to have a messy primary. We don't want to be infighting. It's Winsome's turn. Every time Republican establishment people say it's your turn, that's always a recipe for disaster.
Well, this is what got the Democrats in trouble with Kamala. It was, no, we're going to choose who we're going to choose. We, the party leadership, are going to choose whose turn it is.
Right.
And you guys are all going to fall in line.
Yeah, and then it'll be Jason's turn next, and now Jason Miyares will be challenged 4 years from now, because people will rightly say, well, listen, you couldn't beat Jay Jones, and look at Jay Jones, look at who he is, and there's nothing wrong with the primary. I don't know why the Republican establishment was so afraid of a primary. But you remember that, right? I mean, that was a major discussion, and then Winsome Sears just sort of came out and said, yeah, I'm running, and got the young kid.
And remember, there was, as far as that consultancy, there was a change in Winsome Sears' team.
Yes.
Early on, she ran with someone, I think it was her preacher,
her pastor or something, and it was a political novice, had never run a campaign before.
And so, we lost. I mean, honestly, that was not a good race. There's some questions about her media presence and the ads that were run and where they weren't run.
Well, they didn't have money.
Yeah,
they didn't have money.
There's that. Well, but you had something, and you could choose strategically where. Look, everyone knows Northern Virginia is the problem. Northern Virginia is the problem, and there was some questions about the amount of money and ad time put up in Northern Virginia until it changed, until later in the race. But early on.
Yeah.
I think that there is this sense in Virginia among sort of the party establishment that Northern Virginia is not really worth it. It's so gone. It's
Let me tell you something. As someone who has covered Virginia elections since 2012, we have only won statewide. Since I've been here covering these elections in 2012, right before the Obama re-election is when I started on this radio station. There has only been one candidate who has won Commonwealth-wide in Virginia and brought the rest of the ticket with him, and that was Governor Glenn Youngkin. And do you know what makes him different than all the other candidates who ran statewide in Virginia? He advertised heavy on this radio station.
I know, yeah.
Now, and I'm not saying this and say, I think people know me well enough to know that I'm not saying this to try to juice up ad revenue for the radio station, because honestly, political ads don't necessarily work that way in terms of being incredibly lucrative. It's an indication that he understood that you have to juice up your base in Northern Virginia to get out the vote. And when you're saying, the advertising and media strategy for Winsome Sears should be called into question, that's certainly one thing that should be called into question. I don't remember hearing an ad right here.
No.
If you live in Northern Virginia and you care about politics and news,
you're on this station.
You're listening to this station all the time. I think it's important to also say that there are people who listen to the station who are not sort of necessarily, I think there's some persuadables who listen to this station. Oh yeah,
right?
I didn't describe our listeners as conservative. Actually, I just said they care about news and politics.
Right, but I think a lot of listeners just assume it's just one big block of conservatives. No, I think there's a lot of
You're right. There are, but even if you buy into that narrative that, well, it's just conservative. Okay, well, let's talk about getting out the conservative vote. 4 years ago, Glenn Youngkin, you go down as far south and west as you can in Virginia. That's Lee County. That's the little sharp little dagger point of the state of Virginia as it's aimed toward Tennessee. Youngkin got 6,300 votes 4 years ago in that county to Terry McAuliffe's 882. This year in the same county, Winsome Sears got 5,400 votes to Spamberger's 1,000. You go down to all of those downstate counties in Southern Virginia and Western Virginia, Youngkin outperformed Winsome Earl Sears by at least 5 to 10 percentage points. So she did not get out the Republican vote. She did not get out the base. She didn't energize the base the way Youngkin did.
Yeah.
And that was part of a losing strategy as well. Listen, we've got a lot to discuss all morning long. We got experts with us all morning long. It's not great, but it's a conversation that needs to occur here and nationwide. It's 5:23.
More on last night's election. Keep it here. It's 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37 on this post-election moratorium. Coming up at 6:35, Kel Thomas will be our guest. 7:05, Katie Gorka, the chair of the Republican Party in Fairfax. 7:35, Tim Holbert, American Veterans Center. And 8:05, Mark Halprin, the two-way platform. I joined their platform yesterday for the New York Post election night coverage up till 11 p.m. last night, and later, of course. We were on the air till 11. Late night, Julie, and not a good one. Not a great one.
Yeah. I know I'm supposed to be offering some sort of analysis here, but I'm very busy scrolling Zillow at the moment.
You're looking to sell your house. It's interesting. Again, cyclically, this is what happens regularly. That one-year election in New Jersey and Virginia after a presidential election often swings back over to the party. There isn't necessarily a rhyme or reason other than the American people, I think, inherently want some kind of balance in their governance. Let's not forget in 2009, 1 year after Barack Obama swept in with a landslide into the White House with Democrats controlling the House and the Senate by huge majorities, that was when Bob McDonnell won by close to 20 points in Virginia that next year. And Chris Christie defeated, it was Corzine, wasn't it? Yeah, Corzine by like 2 or 3 points in New Jersey. It was a huge, huge spanking of Barack Obama by the electorates in those two states. And how did Barack Obama react? Did he get the message and say, okay, well, let's reach across the aisle and let's get together and see what we can get done in a bipartisan fashion? No. He turned around and jammed Obamacare down your throats.
Yep.
Come hell or high water. And I expect Donald Trump to respond accordingly. Unlike Barack Obama that year in 2009, Trump wasn't really engaged in these elections. I don't know that the media is going to try to write this off as a huge, huge referendum on Donald Trump. I think that is begging the question. I don't think that's necessarily the case, especially covering Virginia politics as much as we do.
Look,
again,
Larry, it's just every single county in Virginia shifted blue. Every single county. And a good number of Virginians decided to elect an attorney general, the top cop in the state, the top law enforcement official who thinks it's okay to kill Republicans in order to reach a policy goal. That conveys, we talk about, assassination prep and what we're conveying to the voters and what this rhetoric does to the unhinged, to people who are not sane, right? It encourages them to carry out the wishes of these politicians. And so, look, there's reason to be depressed. This isn't just that. I mean, I know you're trying to say this.
No,
look, this often
don't get me
happens.
wrong. I'm not saying
I know. I get it.
I'm just saying it's not a referendum on Trump, or I'm calling into question that political narrative.
Right. I understand. I'm just saying this nothing about this feels normal. Nothing about this. I know that these swings happen. I know that I mean, maybe, honestly, maybe it is just the mom in me right now where I'm like, worried about my kids, worried about living in a state where my neighbors are kind of like, yeah, oh, well, political violence, like, if we have to get the results we need, well, if we need a little violence, I mean, this is very concerning. And I think we really need to look into what is going on with women, what is going on with, just the left in this country. This does not bode well, frankly, for the next presidential election. I think that there is something that's really happened in this country. I mean, we elected a communist in New York. What? It's nuts.
We didn't, but yes, the face of the New York City electorate has been completely altered with Zohran Mamdani. And by the way, again, when I look at the results yesterday, I see it as sort of a dog bites man story that a Democrat won in New Jersey and Virginia. The big story is an actual Marxist winning in New York City. But of course, the alternative was Andrew Cuomo. It was Democrat on Democrat violence up there. But yeah, I think the most positive takeaway Virginia Republicans can have right now, looking at what happened yesterday, is no, your Democrat neighbors don't want you dead, but they're okay with a politician who does. So that's, I guess it's 1 degree of separation. They also rewarded Democrats in the House of Delegates. Of the 100 House of Delegates seats voters decided yesterday, 10 were considered competitive. Of those 10 competitive seats, 3 in Northern Virginia all went Democrat. That includes Elizabeth Guzman, the woman who pushed forward a bill that would criminalize parents who don't affirm their kids' gender choices, which, of course, means that the kid wants to alter their gender that God gave them. The only saving grace to how radical these Democrats can get right now, again, trying to give you as positive a spin as possible, and this ain't a great one, but it's the best I can do. The one good bit of information here is that Abigail Spanberger won by such a wide margin, which 2 weeks ago did not look like the case. It looked like she was going to eke out a single-digit lead. But because she won by double digits, Julie, there will be voices in the Democrat Party who says, hey, she's got potential to be a running mate in 28.
Sure. There's
potential here. And as long as that is a possibility, she will not affirm the most radical fringes of her party. I don't think she will sign into law a bill that criminalizes parents, only because it will be death to her nationwide.
Well, you're right, and that is a good point. And let's not forget a bill just like the one that Guzman, Guzman's not, she's not so thoughtful that she actually came up with this idea on her own. No, she copied and pasted a proposal that came out of California, and guess who vetoed it? Gavin Newsom, because it was too radical. So, and he has presidential ambitions. I mean, I think there is a line that won't be crossed. And I think you're right that Abigail Spanberger now is going to be looking at there's going to be chatter about her having higher office. So, yeah, mercifully, if that bill was too radical for California, perhaps, who knows, though? I mean, I don't know. But I think you're right that given those political aspirations and that she'll be talked about, that might be the only thing that stops her.
Maybe. It's 5:44.
This afternoon on the Derek Hunter Show, we'll have the results from elections across the country. Will it be a good thing for America or a bad thing? We'll talk about it at 3 o'clock on WMAL.
We have election-related critter news from yesterday's Virginia exercise of democracy. Jay Jones, your incoming Attorney General, apparently doesn't just take his fury and anger and aggression out on small children of his Republican colleagues in Richmond. If given the opportunity, he will also kick a small dog. been given the chance. A video circulated yesterday as Jay Jones was standing outside a polling place, and a voter was up there, and he was, she had a little dog there on the leash, and at one point, inexplicably, he looked like he was trying to treat the dog like a soccer ball. You saw this, right? I love that there's actually a headline out there from a website that says, "Did Jay Jones try to kick a dog outside Virginia polling station?" The answer is yes. He did, in fact. Now, maybe he was just trying to pet the dog with the bottom of the sole of his shoe or something. It's just either way, odd behavior, to say the least.
Well, you nailed it there. Odd behavior. Jay Jones is very strange. I mean, have you seen him interact with people? He's a little bit weird. And it's not. People need to understand this was not like him backing up and taking a running start at this dog.
Yeah, he wasn't going for a 70-yard field goal or anything.
Right. But he did this weird thing with his foot where the dog started to walk away, and he definitely was doing sort of this kicking action. Now, maybe he was obviously clear of the dog, but it was weird. And I think that's the thing about Jay Jones. Like, he's weird. I mean, the text messages, he like you brought this up earlier, he doubled down when he was challenged in those text messages and saying, like, can you quit it with this weird, like, violent rhetoric? And he was like, no, look, I mean, I think
I told you this before. This is what has to happen for people to change their minds politically. They need to feel it. They need to feel the pain. Yeah, no, you're right.
And I think that's what sort of makes me worry about him is I don't think this is normal behavior. And again, this sort of kicking motion towards the dog, it's unsettling. It's just weird.
Yeah, I don't. Had he made contact with the dog while doing the kick, it wouldn't have harmed the dog necessarily. I don't think he had the kind of force in his kick.
Right.
But he definitely tried to make contact with the dog with his foot in a kicking motion. That's your new attorney general. By the way, you mentioned the text message scandal. The Republican member of the House of Delegates, Kerry Coyner, who revealed those violent text messages, Democrats in the party apparatus of Virginia, they decided to punish her by going all in on her district, and they succeeded. She was the Republican delegate for HD 75, and they flipped last night, and she's now out of a job. That'll show you.
She provided those texts to National Review Online, which ran that story, which exposed this sort of bizarre behavior and really grotesque fetish that he has about killing Republicans and killing kids and watching those kids die in their mother's arms. So she went ahead and she revealed those. She did the right thing, and she was punished by the Democrats.
Yep, they went after her. They targeted her, and it worked. Listen, I again, this was a bad night for Republicans. There's no two ways about it. And I'm not trying to spin this in any way. The lesson for Democrats is there are no extremes that are too extreme.
That's right.
You can be a jihadist-loving Marxist, but if you put together really slick social media campaigns and you're running against one of the most loathed politicians in your state, Andrew Cuomo, you can still win. If you're embracing a man who has violent tendencies and you turn it around like Abigail Spanberger did and run nothing but ads against Trump and about abortion, you can win in a state like Virginia. And especially if you're running against Trump, which they did, and Trump is A, not on the ticket, B, not running at all, and C, won't even engage in the fight. Yes, Trump endorsed Winsome Sears on the Republican ticket. He never actually said her name. Sears, remember, famously said, "Trump, it's time for Trump to go," and she embraced Ron DeSantis. So it's understandable that there wasn't a whole lot of campaigning on her behalf, and I'm guessing that the Sears people said, yeah, you know what? You're not good for us right now. We don't want you to campaign. But that also meant he didn't engage in this election. He didn't attack Abigail Spanberger at all. He didn't counterpunch the way he usually does. They asked him not to, I'm guessing, and he didn't. And you can run against Trump if Trump isn't going to fight back, and you're going to succeed. And that's what we saw. That's what we saw. And I think a lot of us naively thought going in last night that Democrats would be at least reasonable enough to reelect Jason Miyares and not affirm Jay Jones. And you know what, Julie? Lesson learned. Lesson learned. We will not make that mistake again, Democrats. It's 5:53.